Hi, Estelden here. Guess what I got in the mail a little while back? Paper Mario, the Origami King. It took a little bit longer than expected due to current events in the world, and I'm a little bit late on kind of looking at it and giving my thoughts, but I've gotten into it, and for the most part, excellent game, incredible in lots of ways, cool characters, great exploration, awesome visuals. That's what's really sold me and got me to go out and buy it, or jump in and order it online because I can't leave the house. But I've been enjoying the game for the most part now that I can play through it, and I can say that while it's good, there's been a major gripe that's really been annoying me, and it's something that's plagued modern gaming for a long time, and that would of course be the hand-holding, the dumbing down, turning a series into what it once was, a traditional Mario JRPG-like experience, turning into a game that's quirky, cool, but has a gimmick in every single game that's usually not enjoyable for most people. There's a crowd with Paper Mario that's kind of split. There's a lot of people who still really enjoy it, and they'll say that they enjoy most of the game, but I feel like they tolerate the gimmicks. They tolerate the battle systems that get introduced, and a lot of the kiddie stuff that water it down. And then there's the other half of players who are just so annoyed by what we got going from original Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, and then coming to whatever we've got now, and they're just so annoyed that what could have been isn't there because Nintendo are chasing a brand new audience. Now, it's not just Nintendo here, and I want to say that the problems that plague the Paper Mario series, I don't think they're the end of the world. I can still play through the game. I plan to go through and finish this title because it's pretty cool in so many different ways, and I wouldn't want to let a few things ruin it for me. But when you think about what a series could be with its potential and all of the incredible things that we've got access to now with gaming technology and what the developers can do compared to what they could do 15, 20 years ago now, it's a real shame that they don't want to innovate and they don't want to get more advanced, and instead they want to get more and more simple. Yeah, let's upgrade the visuals. Let's comment on incredible rope physics and awesome weather and day-night cycles, but the actual game design and what we play, no, let's dumb that down. Let's get it below like putt-putt levels because we've got copies to sell and we want to market to people who don't really like video games anyway, and we'll just hope to get them in for the next title. And that's no disrespect to Putt-Putt, because that game is fucking awesome, that series is awesome, all the humongous entertainment games, and I'm actually going to get into that a little bit later. Identifying the problems of the Paper Mario series, and I want to really get across, it's not just this series, it's more like that's a straw that's broken the camel's back for me, because I've seen so many series, so many games be dumbed down, whether it's The Elder Scrolls, whether it's Fallout, so much Bethesda, whether it's a lot of Ubisoft games over the years. It's a shame, and I want to use Paper Mario as the example because it's so easy to pinpoint. When you go from Thousand Year Door to Super Paper Mario, whether it's Color Splash, whether it's Sticker Star or beyond, it's really just easy to see and pinpoint. And there was a really good meme I saw on Reddit, which really just kind of hammers home what's happened. And it's a good laugh, it's a spicy meme, but the main thing here is that they've taken out any of the number-based mechanics, anything that requires a bit of thinking, a bit of critical thinking, and they've tried to replace that with little puzzles and things and scenarios where you can't really lose. The battle system in the Paper Mario series now, or at least in the Origami King, it revolves around doing puzzles where even if you lose, well, you basically get on a pat on the back, you get a second chance, and you're really not going to run into any trouble. You can just keep repeating this puzzle over and over again. You do have a health pool, but they're pretty generous with it, and you're probably not going to run into too much trouble, at least when you're not on a boss, which is a little bit cooler at the very least. That's not the end of the issues. The real problem that I had in Paper Mario, and this is within quite a few hours into the game, so there's I think there's like 5 or 6 worlds in the game. In the second world, they're still holding your hand. And the hand holding they do is when I just want to explore, I just want to look at this cool crafted designed area that looks really great. I can tell the designers had a lot of fun making it. There is so much life, there is so much heart into this game and this world. Every 2 seconds, the game was prompting me with stuff. It was taking the control from me, the player, hitting me with something, telling me, oh, you need to go here next. No, don't go that way. You need to go this way. You need to do this. You need to do that. Every 2 seconds, I could barely enjoy what I was playing, and the exploration was pretty much gone because anytime I wanted to look to do something else, it told me I couldn't. I'm sure I'll be able to go back later, but that first time you step into something brand new and I just want to enjoy it, stop forcing me down a narrow path. If you want to do that, don't make it like an open world design. And I think the problem here is the suits up top and then the boots on the ground, the people actually making the game and have the passion. So I can tell you it's night and day difference. The person in the boardroom is telling them, put those FIFA mechanics in it. We need the next Candy Crush, the game that's going to be bringing in billions of dollars of microtransactions. That's what the suits are focused on. They're the ones looking at metrics, looking at the different monetization schemes that they can actually exploit over players. And then they try and put a lot of that theory and that design into the games themselves, which is far and away from what the designers are likely trying to do. They just want to make a good fucking game. They've got into the industry because they probably love them, they studied, they got into it, and then they've got to put up with a lot of bureaucratical crap just to stay in their job. So, it is a shame. I'll say with Nintendo, they've got a much better balance. Most of their games are good, and I'm not picking on them completely. It's just that Paper Mario is a good recent example of what's going on. So, all of the dumbing down, it's designed to bring in a new audience, essentially. That's why Paper Mario is never going back to the RPG mechanics. It's never going to happen. And all the fans who are holding on and thinking the next one's going to be it, they're just going to look at Thousand Year Door and they're going to copy that template. It's not happening. They've shown their hand. They're looking to bring in those same people who are existing fans. They're the ones who are guaranteed sales and are always going to come back. They're going to come back. They're, I wouldn't say addicted, but they're just so used to playing the series and they love certain parts of it that they're never going to really stop. But they know that this 7 out of 10 game could be a 10 out of 10 if they just nailed the battle system, the progression system in the game, and got back to what the series once did best. They're not going to do it because that's just going to guarantee them that one audience. So they want to bring in these new players, which is fine. Obviously, if a series is completely stagnant, then the developers and the publishers, they're going to look for other things to do instead, because they're like, we're not really growing, and if we had one flop, if we don't get the execution right, we might lose all those players too. So there's other ways to go about it. Instead of kind of ruining your game with gimmicks that no one likes, I don't think there's any kids who pick up the game, play through this stupid puzzle mechanic as a battle system, have their handheld every 3 minutes. I don't think they actually enjoy it as much as the developers or the publishers and the suits at top think they actually do. I don't think that at all, because I think back to when I was younger, and look, a lot of people use this argument, oh, you're a boomer, you're an adult, you don't need these tutorials apparently because you've been wasting your life with video games for 15 plus years or whatever. But when we used to play games on the Nintendo 64, the PS1, the SNES, the NES, whatever it might be, we didn't have this sort of crap. We had to learn. And one of the great things about gaming, especially as a kid, is it's a breath of fresh air compared to the rest of your life. When you're an 8-year-old kid, you're bossed around by your parents, you can't really do too much, you're going to school. The most choice you really get to make is which zip of the bag you're going to put your lunchbox in. You don't really get to do too much. So when you step into the world of video games and suddenly you might be a warrior in a role-playing game, you might be playing as Link in Zelda. That sort of interactivity is just something you don't get in other mediums or in other areas of your life when you're that young. I mean, you can watch TV, you can watch movies, but at the end of the day, you're just sitting on the couch sucking your thumb. You're not really getting in amongst it like you are with a video game where you have control over what you're doing. So when the suits up top force the developers to put in this over hand-holdy tutorial-like stuff, it just takes away the whole point. Because when you're forcing this stuff down kids' throats, and a lot of this stuff can last like 5+ hours in a game. I mean, as I said, I'm up to the second world in Paper Mario. I'm a fair few hours in, and they're still hand-holding my every move. It wasn't that long ago that I was still getting tutorials with the battle system, and it was really, really slow, and I was like, yeah, just get on with it. Let me try. Let me fail. That's completely fine. I don't need to win every single battle. I'm allowed to kind of learn and trial and error and make a few mistakes, because that's where the fun lies. That's when you can overcome a few challenges. And you just don't get that when you spend 5 hours having a school-like presentation of telling me, here's how you do it, this is how to not get it wrong, everything's going to be fun, 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 because you're always going to win, and that's what they do. And it's the same with the exploration. They don't just let me wander around and look for things. Oh no, because you might fall down a hole, or you might get lost, or something might happen. We need to tail you along and basically pull you by a string towards the end of the level. It's really tiresome, and I don't think kids like it. But they don't have a choice because these are the games that they're being shoved in their face. These are the games that are getting marketed to them. They're what the parents will see on TV, and that's what they're going to buy their kids. They're not going to find some awesome indie game on the Nintendo Switch store. The whole thing's a complete mess. So good luck. They're not going to find any hidden gems. It's these games and that's it. And they're the ones that are getting dumbed down, so they're not exposed to new things and trial and error and actually learning things firsthand in the game. It's all going to be just ham-fisted to them in one pop, and they're probably going to get bored. It's probably why a lot of kids might either move on from video games altogether, they might think they're boring, or they'll go back to Fortnite and they'll stick with that, because at least in that game they can just jump into the action, and they don't find, oh, campaigns are boring. Well, they're not boring, it's just that you're getting the worst of them, because you're getting stuck with all of this hand-holding, and it just makes it an absolute chore to play through. When I think back to when I was a kid, we weren't trying to get into those games that were designed for kids specifically. It was the GTAs, games like that we really got immersed in and wanted more of. And I think part of it wasn't just because it was cool because you were going around doing drug deals or whatever, but it was the freedom of the world and not being told exactly what to do and told if you're not playing this way, you're playing it wrong, you might have trouble, you might die or whatever. It was about the chance to get it wrong. And I think that's really important in a game. You can punish the player for getting it wrong, not in a way that makes continuing less fun, but in enough of a way where you go, right, I really fucked up there. I'm going to learn from my mistake and get it right next time. And then that's completely fine. So there's no reason to stop people from exploring, stop people from enjoying a battle system that might be a little bit more complicated. It might require a little bit more learning on your own part and actually doing a bit more reading of what's going on in the game, looking at what you need to do. All of that stuff's completely fine because you can learn as you do it. That's the main thing. If you're just making people watch these awful tutorials that can drag on, when you think you're done with it, it pops up again because they thought, oh, we don't want to give it to you all at once. We're going to drop feed it to you slowly. That's even worse because you feel like you're never getting into the meat of the game because it keeps going. Assassin's Creed Black Flag was a terrible example of that because, I mean, that game wasn't even for kids. It was meant to be for probably adults, teenagers, whatever. And in that game, I think about 15 hours, 20 hours in, at least halfway through the game, they were still giving me new mechanics and giving me tutorials about it. At some point, you just want that complete freedom for, right, I'm immersed in the world now, I don't need the developer looking over my shoulder anymore. What's stupid to me as well is, in the past, they introduced kids to games in a much better fashion. Like I said earlier, there were games like Putt Putt, Pajama Sam. Those games had actual puzzles in them, you could get stuck. Whereas now we have, The Walking Dead, the Batman point-and-clicky sort of game, which isn't a point-and-click at all, it's just a walking simulator. Those had no gameplay. You couldn't get stuck. But yet I could get stuck in a game that, it even said on the cover, I think it said they recommended for 5 to 8-year-olds. So it's pretty sad that the level of gameplay in a lot of modern games in a similar vein is even lower than that. It requires less critical thinking. So I'd much rather see kids get into or be introduced to gaming in such ways that encourage getting stuck and running into some trouble. Whereas in Paper Mario, it's just not going to happen because they're going to hold your hand every step of the way. But I don't want to bang on too much about all the problems because I think there's a way out. And for Paper Mario, I think it comes from Nintendo accepting that they've got a big audience of adults. And a lot of these adults pick up all of these games. They love everything published by Nintendo. I know for myself, I still picked up Kirby. I still picked up Yoshi's Crafted World. And the problem is, by trying to market those games and create them for kids who probably aren't the bulk of the people buying them, I don't really know that many kids now who really get into Nintendo games. I think a lot of the kids these days who would end up playing those games are because the parents buy them for them because they love Nintendo as kids as well. I don't think it's so much the case that the kids see all this stuff and jump right into it. It's just not really like that. A lot of kids now, they want to look for what's cool, not what their parents like, so it makes it a bit tougher. And I'm not saying that kids shouldn't enjoy these games and play them. Plenty of people will on their own accord, but you need to balance that. You need to accept that you need to look at yourselves, Nintendo, kind of like Pixar when they were making Toy Story and A Bug's Life, because they were made for kids, and most kids, I would say, were the ones who went and saw it, but they were also for adults. There wasn't really any dumbing down. It could be really enjoyed from any direction. And Paper Mario struggles to reach that balance because of the battle system, because of the hand-holding. It's more like a childish cartoon, which no adult can get into. No one over the age of 10 can get into it. So you need to strike that balance, get rid of the hand-holding, and let people make mistakes. You can still have your clues along the way. You can still have, if you want to have an assist mode, that's completely fine. I think Mario Odyssey had that, and it was pretty well received. I've seen it in 3D World and the 2D Marios, where you have that option. But the game isn't designed around it like Paper Mario the Origami King is, and that's the key difference. Finally though, I want to give you a good example, a really good example of a game or a series that had those hand-holding mechanics, and recently has impressed me, or it should have 2 years ago, but it took me, I was so burnt out of the series, it took me a while to really revisit it properly. That is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So Black Flag, Unity Syndicate, I felt real low points to some degree for the series when it came to the hand-holding. There was just so many tutorials, and it just felt like a slap in the face if you were a fan of the series. Because every single new entry that came out, they just shoved all of these tutorial mechanics in your face, and you're like, I've fucking been there and done that. I've done this like 5 times in your last 6 games. And now I have to do it again in the new entry because you want to market this for new players. You don't give a fuck that I've been following this series the whole way. Odyssey, I was shocked. And I made a video like a week ago shitting on Ubisoft, and I feel a little bit bad because they'd really just burned me so much that I wasn't giving some of their games a fair chance. And Odyssey's made me rethink things a little bit, make me a little bit more hopeful about the future, not just for Ubisoft but other publishers in general, because if Ubisoft are doing this of all people, others must be too, because they're the last ones to jump to the table and actually do something for the good of gaming these days, I would say. So in Odyssey, the difference between, say, Black Flag, where you start off, you're doing tutorials, everything is, it's really systemized, so you look on the map and it's like, here's your chests, you need to go and collect all those, and your anima dots around the map, you need to go and collect those. Why? No real reason, but we hope you're an achievement hunter. That's essentially it. In Odyssey, barely a tutorial. You do a small combat one, then you're thrown straight into the world. They gave me a good option where I wouldn't have an actual mini-map, and I had a purpose behind doing things. There's an XP system in the game. Every time I level up, I get a new ability point to put into my character, and it changes gameplay. It rewards me for doing quests. And the main thing here is that the gameplay hasn't really changed from what it was in Black Flag or Unity. It's just they presented it in a much better manner. They haven't held my hand throughout the whole thing. They haven't acted like I need to just go and do these things just because. They make the game more fun because my character progresses as well. So sometimes it's just the presentation. And it's exactly the same in this game. Because all they need to do in Paper Mario is just get rid of the gimmicks. If you want to make things simple, then just have a fucking easy mode or something like that. Because you're so close to making a fantastic game and having an incredible series that complements the other Mario stuff quite well. And I don't want to pick on the little paper guy because he's cool and he's still got a lot of good things going for him. The series is still really great. But if they just fixed up those little things, stop trying to make games for kids because they're kids, accept that the kids might actually learn something from playing, and that's how they're going to get into video games. They're going to find new things. That's how they're going to find Odyssey. They're going to find Breath of the Wild, which, by the way, don't have the same level of hand-holding at all. So just don't go down that path, because I think Nintendo have been doing it recently, and the success of games like Animal Crossing might have them doing a bit more of it. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but learn from Ubisoft, because they're starting to get things a bit more right. I'm now a little bit more hopeful for what we're going to see in the upcoming lineup of Ubisoft games, like Legion and Valhalla, and I'll give them an honest impression. I won't let my bitterness from the past get in the way of enjoying them if they're good, so I'm going to give them a fair shot. So that's all I've got to say on the matter. Stop the hand-holding, and we're good. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, sub, leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.